I read something that said that the Romans believed that urine could clean stains. And I find that wording to be odd because you would think that it would yield results. That's like saying, I believe that Tide works. I don't have to believe, because the evidence is there. Hi, my name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen? Hello, and welcome to another episode of How Did That Happen? This week we discuss soap. Dish soap, body wash, however you want to call it. Come along for the ride this week as I ask, soap, how did that happen? All right. Back for another episode. Glad to be back with you guys. Episode 35. We keep on keeping on over here. We're just, putting out an episode every week and seeing if we can find out how things happen and keep trying to grow. I know we had a review that I read last week. That was pretty cool. If I get some more of those, I'll definitely read them out. But to keep things going. I just finished reading Seth Rogen's. I guess it's an autobiography. I would imagine it's called Yearbook, and I would say it's actually really good. If you like Seth Rogen, you would definitely love it. If you don't like Seth Rogen, I'm not really sure what's going on here, but cause what's not to like about the guy, but yeah, it was a pretty good book, and then I've since picked up my next book. So I'm sort of reading Storm, we're reading Flurry right now, and I'm reading what's it called? I don't want to get the title wrong. I don't think I have it in front of me. So I think it's called Where the Children Take Us, Where the Kids Take Us. I think it's Where the Children Take Us. I'm not gonna look it up. I'm just gonna go with it. So yeah, but it's what it's about is the actor. And I'm gonna get he's an African guy. They're Nigerian. His name's like Chieto Ejiofor. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. He's the guy from like 12 Years a Slave. He was in that movie. What's that movie? They're in the future. Children of Men. Yeah, that one. Like he's a really good actor. But it's the story of like his life, but not about his life. About like his family's life. Like he and his dad. Get in this accident in Nigeria when he's like 6 years old and his dad dies, but there's like he has like 2 or 3 other siblings and a mom who's running a pharmacy in London, and so there's like the story of like how his mom like overcomes like all of that grief and adversity to still raise what turns out to be very successful children, and it's just a pretty good book. So that's if you follow this podcast, I've since introduced, I say in the last few episodes, what am I reading kind of in this intro segment, and I like to keep it going because it's kind of a little journal of my own of what I'm reading, and I usually read quite a bit. I've kind of gotten back into it pretty hard, so I don't know if we'll always keep this going, but yeah. So that's probably about all we have to really. I think I have to really say right now. Looking forward to hopefully at some point doing video with the podcast, and I have reinvigorated the search for a website. I'm back into it. I kind of given up for a minute, but I think I may have seen some promising results. We'll see though. The podcast is growing, and I'm glad for the people that come every time, the people that have been here, and the people that continue to show up, and people who are here for the first time. Glad you're here. Press and play. We try to find out what happens on this podcast, and hopefully we usually find out, get a pretty good idea. But yeah. Without further ado, let's find out how soap happened. The word sapo is the Latin version of soap, and it is likely based on early Germanic languages. The word possibly comes from the Proto-German saipo, spelled S-A-I-P-O, which means to strain, or the Latin sebum, which translates as grease, or from Mount Sapo, which I've seen in other videos. They say it doesn't actually even exist. It's an Italian mountain whose location is now lost to history. Like I said, it can be lost to history, or it could never have occurred in history, however you want to look at it. The story is that the drippings and ashes from the fires of the gods rolled down the hill and were discovered by filth-encrusted Romans, and that's, kind of how we possibly had one origin story for soap. The word hygiene comes from Hygeia, the Greek goddess of health. She was the daughter of, bear with me here, Esculapius, and it starts with an A. I'm not even gonna. I mean, I could spell it for you, but who really wants to know? That person, that their name started with an A, that they were the god of medicine. All right, so that's where Hygeia gets her Hygienus from. The first evidence of soap production dates back to 2800 BC in ancient Babylon. In fact, a Babylonian clay tablet dated back to 2200 BC was found with a recipe for soap. And that recipe included water, an alkali, which we'll see is actually needed in most bases, or in most salts, and in most soaps. And an alkali is a sort of salt base, and cassia oil. So water, an alkali, and cassia oil were the three things that were needed that were in that Babylonian recipe. And some of the earliest signs of soap or soap-like products were found in clay cylinders during the excavation of ancient Babylon. So they were just soaping it up back there in ancient Babylon. And inscriptions on the side of these cylinders say that the fats were boiled with ashes, but they didn't specifically say that it was a soap. And we'll see, just like I said, it's the alkali and the ashes that are the basis of early soaps, and are still kind of what's in versions of soaps today. The soaps are so different today than what they have been in the past. The ancient Egyptians used soap as medicine, and they combined it with animal fats or vegetable oils, and then combine that with a soda ash substance called trona. And most of these early soaps were made for washing wool clothing. And that's something that you see a lot in the ancient times, is that the early soaps were not always made for washing people's bodies. They were usually made for washing clothes. They were kind of like the first detergent, if you will. And that's kind of what these were. You see, I've watched videos where they say that, that was where the origins of soap in the Middle East also came from, was the idea of vegetable oils with an ash substance, but that it was more for actually washing clothing and then washing your body. And we'll see the Romans kind of keep with that as well, because the Romans didn't actually use soap. We don't have much evidence that they actually used soap in them during the reign of the Roman Empire. What they did, the preferred method of cleaning their body was to massage oil into the skin and then scrape it away and any dirt. And they did that with what's called a strigil, which was just some sort of scraping kind of tool. The standard design of it would be a curved blade with a handle, and all of it was made of metal. And so that's how you would basically clean yourself during the Roman times. And that's one thing I can gladly say did not carry over. As you know, it's a reoccurring theme in this podcast that we see that we're basically just living in like the next coming of the Roman Empire, because a lot of things that we do today are just modern versions of what happened 2,000 years ago. But for this one, it happened. That one stayed in the past, and I'm glad for it, because I don't want to. Can you imagine? I mean, that's how you clean. You just douse yourself in grease, oil, and then scrape yourself clean. And I mean, imagine if you did that, and then you go to work tomorrow. How you smelling? You cool with everybody just knowing your hygiene tactics after that? I don't think so, but that's just me. In reading some of these articles, some of them say that the first soaps could have been the result of cookouts or grilling outside, as most of our ancestors did. And this may seem far-fetched at first, but the results of the process would leave animal fats that were mixed with ash, which is the recipe for a lot of early soaps. And so what you would have, you're cooking this meat in the fire. There's a fire is creating ash, and then the meat that you're cooking, the fat's falling off of that and dropping down into the ash. And who really knows what happened from there to how they got it to be soap? But that's essentially what the early soaps were. So you have to think that somebody's light bulb had to flick on at some point and be like, oh, that looks like could be some soap. And so the result of these two coming together was a chemical reaction that created a slippery substance that turned out to be great at lifting dirt off the skin and allowed it to be washed away. And I mean, imagine if you don't have this and then you do have this, because I watched another thing that said the guy was like, you don't want to do this all the time. Like, it's not the greatest. It's not Dove. You know what I mean? Like, it's not made to keep your skin nice, but it will actually lift things off of your dirty skin and make you a little bit cleaner. Let's see. We have a recipe here. Another recipe for early soap. And this is a quote from, what do they call it? The Mapai clavicula, which roughly translates to a little key to everything. And so the quote from this book is, spread well-burnt ashes from good logs over woven wickerwork, I mean, are they trying to tongue twist, or are they going to teach us how to make soap here? And gently pour hot water onto them so it goes through drop by drop. And then after it's clarified well, let it cook and add enough oil and stir very well. And there you have the first recipe for Dawn dish soap. No, but that's like another early recipe of like how you make soap. Lye was and still is a main component in soap, and fat reacts with lye, a substance made in ashes that can be pretty toxic, and which is why soap makers needed to wear protective gear. And that's also why the guy in the video was like, don't do this all the time, because if you just do it, naturally, you're creating this toxic process that will mess up your skin at some point. But this process is called saponification. Pretty cool word, saponification. Sounds like it should be something other than making soap. Like I was sapontificating the other day. But ancient China also created a type of soap from the seeds of Chinese honey locusts. And that's a type of plant, not an insect, because that's what I thought at first. But it's called Zhao Jia, and probably not pronounced that way. It's a flowering plant with thick thorns, not horns, and yellow or white flowers. And it is sometimes called a soap bean. The fruit of the Zhao Jia tree has been used as a detergent of sorts for more than 2,000 years. Israelites had a style of soap that they made from burnt ashes. As you see, burnt ashes is just like the main kind of like throughway for a lot of these early soaps. Biblical accounts suggest that the Israelites knew that mixing ashes and oils produced a kind of hair gel, which is interesting because some of the early accounts of soap, when it's not used, like I said, when it's not used for washing clothes, was as a shampoo of sorts or some sort of like pomade or greasy substance to apply to the hair. So that's interesting. The Gauls, which inhabited parts of Germany, France, and Belgium, among other nations, created a milder soap, but like I was saying, they exclusively used it for shampooing. And so quickly, I'm going to run you through a timeline of hygiene. And we're going to start in 1500 BC, where our records show that ancient Egyptians bathed regularly. The Ebers Papyrus, a medical document from about 1500 BC, describes combining animal and vegetable oils with alkaline salts to form a soap-like material used for treating skin diseases as well as for washing. 1200 to 200 BC, we see the ancient Greeks bathed for aesthetic reasons, and apparently they did not use soaps. They just did it because it looked cool. And instead, they cleaned their bodies with blocks of clay, sand, pumice, and or ashes, and then anointed themselves with oil. Anointing makes it sound so much cooler than what it is. And scraped off the oil and dirt with a metal instrument known as a strigil. We covered this. And they also use oil with ashes. And then we get to 19 BC, where the ancient Romans began to use public baths. And the first one was called a and it was built by Agrippa under Emperor Augustus. All right, and now it's time for liquid soap versus bar soap. Not really, but kind of. Just a little bit of information, and I thought this was interesting because I've always heard people say that bar soap is a little bit more disgusting than liquid soap, and I thought they were kidding, but research has shown that they were probably not kidding so much. So they are both good for the record, but it has been said that liquid soap is a little bit safer, and that's because the amount of bacteria and fungus that could show up on a bar soap is kind of atrocious. So bacteria tends to grow inside the goo created when the bar soap contacts water from time to time. So we're all familiar with that goo. You know that goo when you pick up that bar soap and you're like, oh, is this soap? Is this did my bar soap throw up, or did it have an accident? Like the soap goo, the bar goo. That's not good for you. The wetness of the water allows microbiological growth, and while skin cells that remain on the bar soap can be used as a food source, that food source can be for pathogens, which are not good. And so this provides an environment in which dangerous bacteria can grow freely and contact your skin when you use that same soap. So you can mitigate the risk by constantly washing that bar of soap and the container that it sits in, getting all that goo up and out of there. So that's just a little bit of, that's from me to you. That's bar soap versus liquid soap. And so that brings us to the process of washing hands. And so the slipperiness, we talked about that. The slipperiness of soap lowers the surface tension of the water that you're mixing it with. Rubbing your hands together while washing allows dirt to temporarily bond with the water and soap and get washed away. So that little handshake jiggle you do is more worth it than you know. And so in America, good old America, the soap industry got started because of bacon and candles. Lighting is an integral part of the history of commercial cleansers because both have traditionally been made from animal byproducts. So lighting and soap all kind of feed from the same stream, if you will. And as the United States industrialized, people moved away from raising their own animals for slaughter and instead purchasing from butchers and delis and things like that. So not everybody just has some spare animal fat just hanging around, you know? So Q